Welcome, everyone. I'm giving just a few minutes to let some of the latecomers in. So glad to see everyone online this Monday evening. Okay. Well, I'm sure there will be more people trickling in as we get started here, but I am just so excited to get to talk about some of the digital edge cutting technology that we're going to talk about today in this webinar, leveraging tech tools to advance our career and church ministries. So just a little bit about our session tonight. We are talking about artificial intelligence, which, as we all know, is really at the forefront of most of the society's minds, and how this impacts art is a big question. So this is reshaping a lot of the way that musicians create, plan, communicate, and interact with the organ world around them, right? So in this Zoom masterclass, I'm really excited that Leslie is going to be sharing some practical ways with us that we can, as organists and church musicians, utilize AI and other tech tools to simplify our work week. Because frankly, I know that we are all at the end of our straw. But so we're going to be talking about generating program notes, planning rehearsals, and improving communication, brainstorming ideas using some of these AI interfaces. And we, including myself, are going to learn about how to use these apps as helpful assistants, not replacements of artistry or our own creativity. So before we get started, I wanted to introduce our sort of clinicianer for the evening. Leslie Smith Kons is Director of Music and Digital Ministry at Round Hill Community Church in Greenwich, Connecticut. And she's the founder of Studio Kons, a digital ministry consultancy that I've already sent out to like half a dozen people because it's just so amazing. So this digital ministry really focuses on churches and musicians, increasing their communication online for clarity, creativity, and calm. Staying calm and centered in all of the things that we're doing. So through consulting, courses, and resources, Studio Kons equips clergy, musicians, and church staff to build sustainable systems for social media, websites, and email communication that reflects their church's identity and values. Nowadays, if your church or your ministry is not digitally active, you're sort of on the you're already fighting an uphill battle. So for those ministries that do want to have that sort of leverage of being out and present, these tools for online presence are invaluable. So Leslie trained at the Cleveland Institute of Music and Yale University. She brings a background as an organist and an educator to her work at an intersection of music, ministry, and digital innovation. So glad that you are here with us tonight, Leslie.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I'm so glad to be here with all of you. And as she said, I'm Leslie Smith Kons, founder of Studio Kons. And I like to say I help churches find their rhythm online. So it's really fun. So, Lindsay, shall I dive in?
That would be great. I think we're all excited about that.
I'm so excited myself. So let's get our slides rocking and rolling. Here we go. Thank you, JW. So JW is going to drop in the link for a handout, and that handout is going to follow my talk today right along. So don't feel like you have to take notes or worry about that. Of course, you are welcome to if you wish, but they will follow along with some of the key points I'm mentioning today and have all the vocab and all that kind of stuff. So when I first heard about artificial intelligence showing up in our work, my reaction was probably the same as yours, which is like part curiosity and part concern, because we work in spaces that are creative, they're relational, they're deeply human, right? That human to human connection that we have. So what role does something artificial have in that? So the idea of letting a machine help us plan or write or imagine can feel really complicated and perhaps potentially even a little unwelcome. So here's what I've learned. AI is not about replacing your artistry, replacing your creativity, replacing your calling, but it's about supporting those things. It's about freeing up time, sparking ideas, so you can focus on the parts that only you can do. So today's talk is not going to be super technical, I promise. It's going to be practical and grounded. Like, we're going to talk about what these tools are, how to engage with them responsibly, and how to get the best results out of them quickly. And so by the end, I hope you're going to feel empowered to use this tool well, and maybe even just like a tiny bit inspired about what's possible. So I hope by now I'm checking the chat. Thank you, JW. The link for the handout is in the chat. And if you're watching this after the fact, the link will be in the video description, so you can get it there as well. So here is where we are headed today. We are going to start with ethics and privacy because that is the foundation for everything else. Then I'm going to walk you through AI basics so the vocabulary and what's actually happening can make sense. And then we're going to talk about prompting, which is the skill that unlocks the whole potential of all of this. And then we're going to spend a few minutes on troubleshooting because, oh boy, AI can really get some stuff wrong. And finally, we're going to open it up for some questions and discussions with Lindsey, and I'm really looking forward to that. So think of this as an introduction. Some of this you might already know, some of this might be new to you, but it's a chance to understand what's changing and how to respond thoughtfully. So here's an idea I'd love to anchor our conversation today. It's that AI isn't to automate our lives or strip out the human parts. It's to reclaim time for our creativity, for our teaching, for caring for our community, and the things that really only we can do. I saw a great quote on social media recently that said, "I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so I can do my laundry and dishes." And that's from a novelist. So how can we use these tools to take some of that repetitive busy work stuff out of our day-to-day lives so that we're freed up to dream more and create more and play more? So that's why we are starting with ethics and privacy, because before we even touch a keyboard, the question is really, how do we use this responsibly? So as I see it, there are three main elements for using AI with integrity. Privacy, copyright, and trust are these elements that we're going to talk about. As we know well, church work runs on trusts, and many of us deal with private information all the time in our congregational work. So the important rule when it comes to dealing with anything AI is to treat it like a public space. These are not private conversations you're having with AI. I like to think of it as a coffee hour test. So don't put anything into AI that you wouldn't say out loud during coffee hour. It's a good rule of thumb, and it kind of helps you remember it. So AI tools don't always store your data permanently, but you cannot assume privacy. So skip anything personal, anything sort of pastoral, and anything confidential. So more specifically, you want to, again, avoid names, identifying information, because when you are using free or public versions of AI tools, you're sending data to an outside system. It's not staying on your computer. So don't share private information, like I said. Don't upload internal documents. Now, there are a couple ways you can actually help protect yourself and others. If you're using ChatGPT, you can actually do it without signing in, which means that it's not going to connect you to that information, which is you're forfeiting some other features there, but if you have a quick thing that you can do that really well. If you have a pro or a team plan on ChatGPT, you can actually opt out of the data being used to train or improve models. And a lot of AI tools have that ability. You just kind of have to dig for it. So I really do recommend going and digging for that. So the bottom line of all of this is that AI is a fantastic helper, but it's still the internet. So just keep that in mind as you're using the tool. Another thing to be really clear and open about is ownership of what the material is. So they have determined that raw AI output is not copyrightable. So that you cannot say, I own this material if it came straight out of AI. So, but once you edit it, then it is now yours. So I like to think of it as like clay that you've taken from a store. That clay, that lump, belonged to the store, and so you can't really claim it. But once you mold it into something else, then it becomes yours. So it's kind of a dubious way to think of a dubious metaphor, but it works. And my best advice always is, of course, to be transparent about how you use AI. If it helped brainstorm a description or an outline, just make note of that. People, I think, respect honesty more than absolute perfection. So this is the natural moment where I share that, yes, I used AI when I was creating this presentation today. I had all of my ideas and my goals and things I wanted to share with you. And so I put them into the AI, and with collaboration there, I was able to organize it into a flow that hopefully works. You can let me know. In this case, the words are mine, but this outline for the presentation was AI assisted. You can actually go on Wikipedia and look at some AI copyright information there. It's really very helpful. So when you're considering use of AI, here's a quick framework you can use. Ask, assess, adjust, and acknowledge. So ask if AI is the right fit for the task. It's not always. Assess what kind of data you're giving it, and adjust the tone and details until it sounds like you. That's a really big part of it, right? And acknowledge the tool's help when you use it. Now, I do want to pause here because actually when Lindsey and I were discussing this topic, the concept of using AI for visuals came up, and it really got me thinking deeply about it. So I'm really grateful for that conversation we had. And so, because AI can do really incredible things with images, right? And I completely understand the temptation to type in, like, create a watercolor nativity scene as you're getting ready for your Advent and Christmas celebrations, just to see what shows up, right? But to me, visuals live in a different space than text because AI pulls from huge collections of existing art and photography. And because of that, the line between creativity and intellectual property feels much blurrier than when it comes to the written word. Now, yes, AI does pull from written words, billions of them all over the world, but because of how it works, which we're going to talk about in a second, it's creating something new versus it doing something in sort of the style of Monet or something. So that's where I've landed on this, that I use AI visuals as rough drafts, but not finished pieces. So I find that they're great for exploring color and layout and mood, but not for final designs. So when I'm planning a sermon graphic series or a social campaign, I might use AI to brainstorm ideas for a look. But when it's time to publish, I turn to real photographs that have been licensed and asset resources like Canva, where real designers' work is licensed and credited and given all that good stuff. So from here on, we're going to discuss where I think, excuse me, where I think AI really shines, which is in words. So let's get back to the text side of things. Here we go. So what's actually going on behind the curtain when we're talking with AI? So when people talk about AI, when I'm talking about AI today, they're often talking about LLMs, which stands for large language models. So you might have tried out ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude. These are all LLMs. Think of them like super powered autocomplete tools. Like I said before, they have read an enormous amount of text and learned to predict what words it thinks should come next. So it's basically a really powerful version of that next word feature on your phone's text messaging app, right? It's not a mind, it's more like a mirror reflecting what it has already seen before. It does not understand music, it doesn't understand theology, and it doesn't really understand people. It's just recognizing patterns. So since we've established that AI is basically guessing what comes next. It's up to you to decide what works. AI has no perception, no insight. It's making its best guess, and you're the one who decides what's accurate or meaningful or right for your purposes. Now, the rule of thumb is better input, better output. And so here's something to think about as we're going through. Have you ever had like a really vague request from somebody that just left you scratching your head? That's exactly what AI is like when we give it kind of fuzzy prompts, which is why I'm excited to share with you some ideas about prompting later. So let's hit up some quick vocab words. Prompt, which I've been saying a few times now, is what you type in, right? That's your instruction to the tool. Temperature is a creativity setting that most AI tools control behind the scenes, but it's important that you know about it. Even though you can't always adjust it directly, but you can nudge it with your tone. So asking for something precise and predictable will turn down the temperature, and asking for something creative and expressive will turn up the temperature. So you can see how that works. Tokens are word pieces or short phrases, the system's sort of way of counting length. And I want to note here that because AI counts tokens and not words, if you're working on a project that sort of has a specific word count, I can almost 100% assure you it will get it wrong. It will get it wrong every time because it has a really hard time counting actual words. And even if you tell it to count the actual words, it's often off by about 20%. So model refers to the actual engine doing the work, like GPT-5, for instance, which you might have seen some headlines about because people were very unhappy about that new one. And training data is the material that the model studied before they released that new model. So you don't have to memorize these, of course, but they're helpful to know, and they are also in your handout. So prompting AI, as we're heading into that section, I like to think of it like conducting a choir. So clear direction gets a clear and better performance. So the same is true with AI. So let's talk about it. How to prompt like a pro. A well-written prompt has 5 distinct elements: the role, the task, the context, so background information, important details, tone, what you want that output to sound like, and then output itself, which is the format, the length, the structure. So let's look at this. I want to share with you this example from my AI guide for churches, which I call the anatomy of a prompt. And here you can see the 5 elements of a good prompt all laid out and highlighted here in different shades of color. So we have the role here. So we're telling it here that you are a church communications coordinator who creates social media content. So we're giving it its role, its job. So it's kind of what hat do you want it to wear today? The task: write a short Facebook caption inviting people to an upcoming event. Great. The context, then we're saying it's a community potluck on Sunday at 5 and some sort of information around it. The tone: make it warm, welcoming, and conversational. Output: keep it under 80 words, which it will roughly get, and include one cheerful emoji at the end. So you can see how that gives it so much information to get the right output that you want. So I have some of my favorite techniques, and I realize I'm going pretty fast through all this, but my top 5 favorite techniques for prompting. First is to not stop so don't stop at the first draft. Keep the conversation going. Ask for a shorter version or a friendlier tone or something longer. You obviously will still tweak it later, but you can get a lot closer to your goal final version if you keep working with it. One of my favorite things to do is ask, what questions do you need from me to make this the best version of whatever I'm working on? That one question alone, I find, helps me think a little bit deeper about it and also gives the model what it needs to do what I'm asking it to do. Because sometimes I find I make assumptions that I would if I was talking to a human, but it doesn't have that information to make those assumptions. So few shot learning means we're going to you could paste in a couple examples of the kind of thing you're working on. I'll do that a lot. I'll have sort of like a half started idea, and it will help me work with that and tweak it further. And we'll look into that, how we do that a little bit later. Number 4, ask the model for a number of versions of the thing you're trying to write. I particularly like this when I'm working on titles or captions or a hook for something to really grab people's attention. I'll say, give me 10 options or give me 10 ideas in varying styles. And it's really good at really broad brainstorming, and I find that really helpful. Now, if you're wanting to get really granular and you want really deep quality outputs, you can use the Think Deeper prompt. This one's really handy, especially with GPT-5, which has different sort of levels of thinking. You can tell it to think deeper if you're not getting the kind of output that you were hoping for. It's a really, really handy, handy prompt technique. So you might have heard in your explorations with AI the 10-80-10 rule, which goes like this. You handle the first 10% yourself, sort of the idea, the direction, and then AI does the next 80%, the heavy lifting, and then you take back the final 10, the editing and publishing. That's a great starting point. I really love this spirit of it. I will say in my experience, especially in church and creative work, I like a little more human input on both ends. So I tend to lean closer to like a 20-60-20. And that for me is the middle 60 is really though where the AI shines. So like creating drafts, reorganizing ideas, texting structure. But I always want to make sure that that initial 20 has come from me, because that means we're pointing the compass in the right direction, right? So if we skip the first 20, we sort of lose our compass. If we skip the last 20, we've completely lost our voice. So let's talk about some troubleshooting ideas, because AI gets things wrong all the time. And it sounds really confident when it gets those things wrong. Here's my metaphor for this. It's like a toddler helping you bake. You really appreciate the enthusiasm, but you're still checking the recipe many times before you put it in the oven. So you might get a sentence that looks really great on the surface, but has the wrong date, has completely the wrong composer, or a completely made up hymn title, or even worse, a completely made up Bible verse. Have we all heard about that one happening? And it's because AI isn't checking facts. It's predicting patterns. So when something is off, don't panic. It happens all the time. Just step into editor mode. I'm going to cough one. So it's also worth considering what we're relying on AI for. And we want to make sure we're not relying on it for data, because that is not the right use of it, because we know it's predicting and it's not searching the internet. So it's predicting information based off stuff it's already read. So if you want to do data research, there's ways to do that, but ChatGPT is not the way to do that. So verifying some facts. So like I said, it's always crucial that we verify any data that that comes from an LLM. And there's some workarounds where you can get it to not guess. For example, I like to, if I'm trying to get it to fill something out or like answer some questions, I will tell it to, if for anything it's unsure of, just leave it a blank. The good news is you can actually always ask it for its sources. So it will give you the article that it read or the link for whatever. And you can also reprompt for clearer context, like asking, can you check that information? Or are you sure? I did that one today for something. And you can always attempt to lower the temperature. And of course, we're always editing before we're sharing anything. So sometimes beyond that, the AI model just gets weird. It does. So if it's heading down a road you didn't mean for it to, it might get too creative or ignore your instructions or start giving advice you never asked it for. When that happens, Here's a few things you can try. First, you can rephrase your question. That's a really nice way to just be like, no, 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 we're going over here now. And if it starts drifting or stops midway through an output, you can say something like, please finish that thought, or you didn't complete it, pick it up where you left off. That usually snaps it back. I'll say that error usually happens to me when I'm using on my phone. I maybe lost service. It'll just kind of like stop. Other times, the model will actually keep asking you clarifying questions that will seem kind of redundant to you, like you didn't need to ask me that question to do what I'm asking you to do. It's this kind of funny stall tactic it gets stuck in sometimes. So you might have to just clearly state, like, give me the copy now, or do the task, or yes, do it now. Sometimes it'll even pretend like it's going to come back to you. It's like, I'm going to think about it and come back to you, which has no capability of doing. So it gets these kind of like funky little moments. And if it's gone so far afield and feels like a complete lost cause, it's sometimes better just to stop wrestling with it and start a new chat and with a fresh conversation and clean context. So let's bring this down to earth with some ways that you could use AI in your week this week. So you could have it draft some program notes or bulletin music notes from your own rough drafts. You could have it summarize your rehearsal notes or committee meeting minutes, or even planning seasonal music. I was having a conversation with a colleague that he had done this. A really nice way to do it is you can actually take, if you have the spreadsheet of your music and then the spreadsheet of the lectionary or your series, you could upload them together. And it will use that as source material and it can give you options of what you're trying to plan. A few other ways, it's also really great for accessibility. So you could create some alt text for images, quick captions for posts, or translate a short announcement, for example, for if you have a bilingual congregation. So if you're unsure about tone, you could always paste a paragraph and say, this thing I've written, make it sound more welcoming, but still professional, or make this sound more friendly, or whatever you feel like. Or sometimes I'll draft something, pop it in, and be like, "This isn't right. Can you fix this in my tone?" Because I've trained it in my own tone of voice. So I'd love to know which of these you think would actually save you time this week. And to me, the key really is to start small. So don't try to rebuild your entire system overnight. Pick one repetitive task that you do. I think to me, repetitive tasks are where this shines. So if you have something you're doing every week, this is the place that you could use AI to help automate it a little bit. For example, we have a podcast at the church. And so I will take the transcript of the podcast, I will pop it into a trained GPT, and then I will use it to then help me identify quotes that are interesting or moments that I should highlight on social media. It's very handy. But that's a repetitive task I'm doing every single week. And so it's saving me so much time instead of having to go through and read the whole transcript myself. So finishing up our webinar this evening, I wanted to say that if this talk about AI got you thinking about how to actually apply this in your own church, I have a few resources that can help. My AI guide for churches is a great place to start. It's like this talk, but more and bigger and more in depth. It's full of tools and real church examples to help you use AI ethically and effectively. And as well, it has some really great, I think, one-page printables. That's my favorite part of this guide. If Instagram is the thing you've been avoiding or just feels like too much, my Instagram guide for churches offers simple strategies and ready-to-use ideas to post with more clarity and less stress. And then if you're feeling stuck in general or unsure where to focus next, I have created this thing called the Momentum Map, which is a one-time audit and action plan that brings clarity and direction to your church's online presence. And lastly, for deeper support, I do offer one-on-one consulting, fully personalized, flexible, and grounded in, of course, normal church life. No pressure at all, but if you're looking for your next step, I would absolutely love to be of service to you. You can always visit me at studiokons.com. So let's end where we started. which is let AI do the busy work so you're free to focus on the creative work. But I want to put a twist on that now by saying, let AI carry the ordinary so you can create the extraordinary. Thank you so much for listening to my my AGO TED Talk today, and I'm excited to dive into your questions and conversations with Lindsey now.
Man, Leslie, that was awesome. I am so excited about everything you shared, and I have so many questions, as do many people in this chat. So
Oh,
I will start going through some of these Q&As, and maybe
good.
I'll get a chance to slip one or two of my questions in too.
I love it.
Okay, so first question, do you have a specific model that you use, or do you use different models for different tasks?
That's a great question. So I started on Gemini and then have actually since switched over to ChatGPT. I found ChatGPT almost like an overeager puppy at the beginning because it always does this like follow-up question, like, do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do this? After every prompt, and I found that a little off-putting, but now I'm used to ignoring it. So I will say I now use ChatGPT for all of my large language model work. Canva has some interesting AI stuff if you want to do, like I was saying, draft visuals or moving some, my stuff around. There we go. Draft visuals or what was I saying? Templates are really interesting there too. I will say within ChatGPT, there are the different models, and sometimes I'll switch back and forth between 4.0 and 5. I find 4 is sometimes a little bit better for like creative writing. There's a little more nuance there. They've been improving 5. It's getting better. But yes, so.
Yeah, someone else actually asked, basic question, how do you even get to the GPT-5?
Oh, super great question. You, so, excuse me. So ChatGPT will probably automatically give you 5. If it doesn't, hold on, I'm gonna pull it up right now and I'll tell you while we're
Great.
talking. Hit up another question and I will come back to this one.
See, what are your thoughts about using AI to create a Christmas pageant flyer to pass out to the congregation? Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, how much of it are you using AI for? Especially because if you're on Canva, and I like would shout it from the rooftops that every church should be on Canva, especially because there is a free nonprofit plan, which means you get the pro account. You actually get, I found out yesterday, you get the Teams account for up to 50 people free
Wow.
with the nonprofit. So you get a completely free account, which means you get access to every template under the sun that people have done. They're not super church related, but they're close enough. So I would start there before I would use AI to generate art, because a lot of art has already been created with people in their own creativity and it came from them. So I would
Mhm.
start there. That's my default. But if you have something you want to do and if you're really inspired, I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah, if I can just add, because I love Canva, big time user of Canva.
Yeah.
I find that, at least in my experience with generating AI images, text doesn't come through very well. So if your
Oh, it's
flyer,
hieroglyphics. Yeah.
yeah, so if your flyer has any sort of text on it at all, you're already going to be um, fighting an uphill battle. Like you're not going to be able to use just a straight up AI
Yeah.
creation. But
No.
Canva has, you can edit all of the text, all of the like template text, you can edit to be your own time and your own place and your own um, event title. And like Leslie mentioned, it's already all sort of like licensed, and you're honoring artists and creators. So um, definitely would go that route. Um,
Absolutely.
did you want to jump back to that GPT-5, or do you want another Q&A
Yes.
question?
So I was seeing if the free account had access to 5, and they do.
Okay.
So when you log into well, we just go to chatgpt.com. It says there'll be like the sidebar. Let's do it this way.
Mhm.
It'll be the sidebar and then your sort of chat screen, and it say chat GPT and then a number. And if you click that number, it'll change. So you can go back and forth into um, legacy models, which will go back forth. And then you can also decide sort of how deeply it thinks. If you
Mhm.
are like trying to just do some quick stuff, you can actually get it to respond faster. I usually leave mine on auto and then I tell it to think deeper if it's being a
Gotcha.
little ornery.
If sorry to interject my own question here, but if you
Uh,
are all I have an account on ChatGPT and I have a bunch of conversations already in 5. If I move
yeah.
it to 4, do I lose those conversations? Do those conversations change at all? Like, does it only affect new conversations?
So it's such a great question. So actually it's chat specific.
Okay,
So I actually
gotcha.
have some chats I run in 4. I have some chats I run in 5. They're actually in the same project. So I do
Okay,
recommend if you're so speaking about ChatGPT specifically, I do recommend that everyone, if you're doing a pro account, definitely keep your stuff organized in projects because you can give that project specific instructions. So I have
cool.
like a church one, I have like a podcast one, I have the, I have all
I
these
have
different
none.
things.
I just have a long list of all of my conversations. It's completely
Yes.
a mess. It's a
It's
disaster.
it can be chaos in about 3 days. It can go, yeah, it's really tough. So I'll keep that then. And then I actually, if we want to go really pro level, my new hack, which is a hack, is actually to create GPTs for myself.
Oh.
And so what's one new one I created? Oh, so I'm creating this template pack for Studio Kons, and I'm
Mhm.
creating a Canva tutorial as part of what people will get when they purchase it. So I don't think I needed some help writing like the idea of a tutorial. So I trained a GPT to be an expert tutorial maker, and then I'm using that to then make the tutorial for the item. So you can kind of see how you can get it to sort of have a real focus. And I say with GPTs is nice because if you want it to always work a specific chat to always work off like one document or specific piece of information, your
Mhm.
overall chat GPT memory is limited and it'll start like churning stuff out. But if you create a separate GPT, which is what they call like their trained bots, right?
Mhm.
If you create that for yourself, you can keep it working off of you upload sort of PDFs of data, whatever that looks like. If it's your tone, the goals you want it to do, what kind of output you want it to have, and then it'll stay there and it won't get kind of weird on you.
Gotcha. Okay, that opened up a whole set of questions for me, but I'm gonna move back to Q&A.
I love it.
Okay, so this question was, do you have a particular AI that works best for you? ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini? Do you have preferences there?
Yeah, so like I said, I started on Gemini. I think Gemini is good. Um, And I've heard really good things about Claude for creative writing. I have not tried it, but that's kind of next up on my list from just like a curiosity standpoint. I have stuck with ChatGPT just because I feel like I can get it to my brand voice faster.
Gotcha.
Like I feel like it can get the nuance of what I'm trying to achieve in tone really well, and that's why I like it. But I say ChatGPT, and it's just sort of become they're investing so much in it right now, if we're being honest about it. And I like that I can guarantee that I'm not training models off of it. But you can do that on Gemini as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice. Next question. I've not used ChatGPT. I thought AI meant the feature search assist that my web browser has. Guess I'm not sure what the scope of AI tools is.
So that I'm so glad, Robin, I'm so glad you brought that up because that's a really important thing. That search engine search assist thing on Google is wrong. I've seen a number as high as 75% of the time.
Mm, wow.
So when you're Googling, just ignore that. Or just take
Or
everything with a super grain of salt because that information could be old, it's confused, right? It's not great yet.
is there a
Um,
way to turn it off, the
I
search
don't
assist?
know. That's a great question, but we should find that because that would be useful because it's very irritating sometimes. But I
Okay,
will say, so one thing I will say that I will use is because it has a little like a link button after the information it gives. If I find something that's kind of close to what I'm looking for in that sort of search engine summary, I'll click on that and it'll usually get me to the answer, if that makes
gotcha.
sense. Yeah, it's helpful. And I will say, so yeah, so so that is AI, and so are LLMs, and so are the image generators, and it's really it's really this sort of predictive text thing and this sort of supercomputer when we're talking about artificial intelligence. I think the more I think about it, the more I feel like artificial intelligence is such a misnomer and actually creates more concern and, dare I say, fear than just like really powerful computers who
Gotcha.
predict text off of all the text we've ever written on the internet. I do also want to say, it didn't make it into the presentation. It is in the AI guide, if anybody wants to grab that, that AI is trained on what humans have written. And what humans
Mhm.
have written is not always fair and is not unbiased. So note that some of the stuff you're getting has the lens of other people's opinions in it. So if that's just another reminder just to verify, and make sure you're editing everything you put out. Because if you're putting your name on it, right, you're gonna have to stand behind it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I
Okay,
do love
next
it. So
question.
just, grain of salt.
I would love to use AI to help create SOPs, standard operating procedures to use with people that help at the church, staff, and volunteers. Any suggestions how to do this? It takes a long time to create slash type out SOPs now.
Mhm. Yeah, I love this. So I feel like that one you would, if you have something you're already using now, um, as a starter, you can start with that. I would so remember we talked about the 20-60-20 rule. So you could put in what you already have and put in then what changes you feel like need to be made. Again, I would leave names out and have it leave blanks for names. Um, and then have it, I don't know I don't know your, I'm tripping with my words, sorry, your specific example, but so put in what you have, what changes you want to make, and then kind of work with it from there. I bet you'd find it pretty good about that.
Mhm.
And you could also ask it, what best practices it knows. You could have
Mhm.
it act as a, let's see, what would it be? A world SOPs are HR kind of based, right? So you could have it be like a world-class human resources officer. Always put like world-class or expert before your role. It kind of helps elevate the level a little bit. So I think, yeah, I think you would find it very helpful and at least get you further down the road for sure. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this would be helpful, so Leslie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but would asking it like what holes are in this document or like what am I missing or what could be problematic or, can you ask it to sort of like analyze something that you
I
submitted
love
like that?
that. Yeah. I mean, be prepared to disagree with it.
Yeah.
But I think for me, I like to have it go super wide of like, if
Mhm,
I was going to include everything I possibly could in an SOP in this situation, what would you include? And have it just go boom and give you, 300 things. I'm exaggerating. But then you could always narrow it down. I find it much easier to start with too much and like cross stuff out than have that kind of blank screen. You're staring at nothing and you don't know where to go. That's where I really like is like sometimes if you want to just have it give you a million ideas, you can then, it maybe gives you things you hadn't thought of before.
yeah, great. So this next question is how much does chat cost? I looked it up for us, unless Leslie, you know it off the top of your head.
Was it 20 bucks a month?
20 for the plus, but the pro is 200 a month, which
Yeah, nobody needs the pro.
seems
Nobody
like a
needs the pro.
huge change. I thought that it was like a decimal point missing. I was like, how do you go from 20 to
Yeah,
200 in like your two plans?
yeah.
Um,
I know. I actually like tapped that once because I thought it was like, oh, 20 a month or 200 a year. I was like,
uh-huh.
oh, that makes sense. And then it was like, are you sure? And I was like, no, I am not.
That's funny. Okay, I hope that answers Ron's question. Okay, next question. What about using Copilot on Microsoft Windows? Since it's already on my computer, is it capable of helping with what you've talked about tonight?
It is, absolutely. Yeah, that's just Microsoft's version of it. These
Cool.
guys all have their own versions of it. People consider them to have their own strengths and weaknesses, but I think if you're dabbling, I say use the one that's easiest for you to use. If it's there, if it's handy, give it a whirl and just get comfy, and then you can be like trying out different ones as you go. But I think if you're, drafting an email you're having trouble with or something, or working on some social media captions, that for me is one of my favorite ones because it's like it's a lot of text to get through when you're posting a lot. Um, that I would say absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Okay, another question here. What is your best method for validating that you have accurate information from the AI tool?
Yeah. I'd love to know your thought on this too, Lindsay. But for me,
Mhm.
it's just taking that information and then just going back to Google and ignoring the AI search part and getting the real data. You can also ask it for its sources, and
Yeah.
then it will actually give you those links. So there's the possibility that it found the right link, but read it wrong,
Mm-hmm.
which is a thing that happens too. So you could always go in, and then that's a nice way of doing it too, because it'll like I was saying with your Google results, it'll have that little link. AI, the at least Chat GPT, I will say, does the same thing. So you can go in, click that, and check it. But it's the same way you would research anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no
That's what
fancy way
I was
really.
going to say that. I have a question about that though.
Mm,
Does ChatGPT or any of these models, do they have access to um non-open access materials? So like if it's a book that is locked through whatever system, open access is a huge
yeah,
thing in academics right now. So like,
yeah.
do you know?
I don't believe so,
Okay.
but I know that there's been some kerfuffles about various things. I don't
Mm,
believe so. It shouldn't.
gotcha. Yeah. Interesting. So that would really limit, I guess, in some respect, the pools of resources that it can actually
Yeah,
examine and cite.
for sure. And I think, I think the question is, are we using it? I think to me, I think where we get maybe a little fuzzy is like, are you using it to help you with sort of ordinary repetitive tasks of
Mhm.
text, or are we using it as a research tool? And to me, LLMs aren't research tools. We're sort of
Right.
using a hammer to I'm bad at I'm tired of metaphors. I use
Your
a hammer for
metaphors?
my every tool is a hammer, as they say. So, but it's the wrong tool for the job. We'll
Yeah,
say that. Yeah.
definitely. I really like it for formatting citations. Like I use it for that.
Nice.
Just because I get like bibliographies that are super long and then it just takes forever to do myself. I always check them, but that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Okay, thank you, Teresa. Let's see. I have some
Okay.
questions of my own if we have a few minutes left.
Let's do it.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier, and I just wanted to dig a little deeper on how you develop your own voice in an AI engine so that the output is closer to your own style of writing.
Yeah.
You mentioned like there's one model that you feel like it gets your voice quicker. Like how long does it usually take? Is it usually based on your initial 20% input, or like where does your voice come from?
Yeah, so I don't have this down to a science yet. I'm trying to figure out how I can like teach that to others. But I
Mhm.
will say there's a couple kind of ways you can hack it a little bit, which is if you have examples of your own writing that you want that output to look like, you can give the chat that writing and say, tell me how you would describe this
Mm.
writing. What's the tone of voice? What's
Mm.
like, analyze this for me, and then take that and then copy that into another chat and say I want it to sound, here's the guide, and then here's the text I want us to work on. So
That's
you can
crazy.
use yourself as an example. It's like few shot learning sped up.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Um,
And
okay, this would
I will say too, just to add on to that, I actually have a couple set up for different tones. So I have
mhm,
like the professional chat, and then I have
mhm.
like the fun social media caption sassy chat, So there's sort of they all are set up to get me close to where I want them to be, without having to like really hack
Oh,
it too badly. And
we
it's
have
really
another,
just about saving time.
yeah. We have another question in the chat. Will AI search internet for, say, all types of certain jobs near me that are available?
No. I mean, it
Yeah.
can try. It's gonna have a really hard time. Like
Yeah.
AI can't even read my website.
Oh.
I try to get it to like, can you go to the homepage and give me your thoughts on it? And it's like, I don't know how to do that. It gets really confused.
I'll
So,
give you my thoughts on your homepage. It's beautiful. If you
oh,
guys haven't
thanks.
seen her website, go check it out. It's really excellent.
Thanks,
Um,
guys.
yeah. Yeah, I think that your best bet is going on Indeed or one of those websites that are like designed for job, yeah, posts.
Yeah. I think
Um,
where we get tripped up is hoping it will do everything because it sounds like, oh, it's artificial intelligence. It's this super robot who can do all the things, but it's just not, you know.
yeah. Another question, do you use AI for social media and if so, how do you use it to help with social media?
Oh my gosh, that is a whole presentation unto itself that I would love to
Yeah.
give, by the way. Short answer, I use it for topic ideas. I use it for some strategy thoughts, just kind of like working out how I do. Because I have, I have my pillars set and sort of the things I want to say, and then I look at when my audience is online, and then sort of it gives me, and then I look at my ideal clients' pain points, desires, and aspirations, and then think about topics that I could speak to on that. So it's sort of topical things. And then I will use it to draft the captions in my brand voice. I actually have one GPT that I got from my business mentor, which she called Hannah the Hook, which makes me laugh every time. But it is literally there to help you draft sort of the first line of your caption to like
Hmm.
grabs people's attentions, right? So you can use it for so much stuff. I think for social media is really kind of where it shines because so much of social media is text based.
Yeah. Okay, so I have maybe one or two more questions. I know we're coming up close on the hour. But you mentioned that using ChatGPT is not always, or these models, always the best choice for the moment for what you're writing. And I've had similar feelings.
Mm,
I've had conversations with students about this, particularly in how they use Grammarly AI, because
mm,
Grammarly AI will offer a lot of like substitutions for phrases, and especially in music, like academic writing for music sometimes the meaning is lost or
yeah.
misconveyed. So like how do you choose what moments to use um any of these like text models on?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think it matters how much it matters.
Oh,
If
how
it's
poetic.
like if it's a post you're doing and it's for your church and the message doesn't need to be this nuanced important thing, then I would probably use it for that. But if, like you say, if you're doing academic writing, maybe you use it for if you're stuck on something or you want to make something make sense or optimize for clarity, you could do that. But I think it
Yeah,
matters how much it matters, and the more it matters, the less I would probably use it.
fantastic. Yeah, I find well a lot of the students are ESL, English as a second language, and so they just
Mm.
trust what's being given to them.
Oh,
And so
sure.
it's hard to sort of convey the like, no, your sentence was actually excellent.
Yeah,
Don't just let
yeah.
the robots do it.
Even with the
Uh,
robots. Yeah, and if I had a dollar for every time I've had to been like, stop putting in M dashes because it's obsessed with M
I've
dashes.
seen like 4 posts about the M dashes today. I'm like, I can't ever use an M dash again. I love them.
No, yeah.
Fine. It's okay.
Yeah, it's
I
no
don't need
good.
them. Okay.
They're dead
Another
to us.
question. They are dead to us. Another question here. Can AI trim down a job notice slash description down to like 3 lines showing certain specifics? I think this goes back to the tokens.
I think, yeah. I mean, it'll get really close. I think that it could probably, I mean, three specific lines you might have to fiddle with, but you could say shorten this by a little bit or by 50%, and it'll figure it out. And always give it always, ask for like three versions for that, I would say. But I think that's a really great example. If you give it text, it can always adapt, it can adapt text really well because it knows what you want it to say.
Yeah.
So it's kids like, oh, well, I can play with this. It's giving it the blocks. So you're just telling it to make a house or make a horse or, you
Mm,
know.
mhm. Nice. Okay, we're gonna take one more question. YouTube has AI ideas for new videos. Is
Mhm.
ChatGPT better than YouTube, or do I need to stick with YouTube ideas for inspiration? This is for making my own videos.
Yeah. So I don't know what model YouTube is running. Um,
Mhm.
but what they're running is basically kind of the same thing, but it has its own instructions. So they've probably optimized it for different parameters of stuff that works for YouTube. So I would think of it like a GPT that YouTube trained. So
Gotcha.
I think you can go ahead and use it. There might be some privacy stuff there. I don't know. I would check that probably. I think sort of a both and kind of idea.
Mm.
Yeah. You're
Fantastic.
welcome.
Man, this session was just a go, go, go. I'm so excited to have been here with you, Leslie. For those of you who are still here, we will be taking December off of our webinar series, but plan to join us again on Monday, January 12th for the next webinar in our series. It's titled Get It in Writing, Contracts for Church Musicians,
Mhm.
something really important for all of us. So the AGO Committee on Career Development and Support will be presenting their new sample contract provisions so you can be prepared when negotiating with your employer. You can sign up at the AGO website, agohq.org. Um, Links for this session will be sent out, I believe, later this week, in the next few days. That will take you to a video on YouTube. And as mentioned, the link for the PDF, the handout of this session, will be in the description of that YouTube video. So you'll be able to access that if you are watching um, on YouTube. Thank you again, Leslie, so much. I hope that we get to hear more from you in the future. I already have several ideas of sessions to do. So let's stay in touch. And for everybody else, I hope you guys have a great holiday season and get through it. And we'll see you in January.
Thank you, Lindsay. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.